Hey, what's going on, folks? Welcome back to the Parkside Merchants channel. For today's video, we're going to be doing another installment here in our series, going through the first 11 sets of vintage Yu-Gi-Oh! And talking about my top 10 favorite cards from each of these original sets. I should say that I have not ranked these cards against any particular rubric or framework. It's not in terms of like cash value, or in terms of, collectability necessarily, or even in terms of playability. These are just kind of my personal opinions and impressions, and in hindsight, just my perspectives on which cards I like the most from each of the 11 original Yu-Gi-Oh! Sets. For folks that are new to our channel, we do talk about all kinds of topics related to vintage Yu-Gi-Oh! And other collectible categories like Pokemon, some sports cards, and that sort of stuff. So feel free to like, comment, subscribe to help support our channel. We'll go ahead and dive in here. We're going to be talking about Dark Crisis here in this video. In my opinion, this is kind of a top-heavy set. There's like a couple of cards in here that I like a lot, and the rest of it I'm just kind of, take them or leave them, most of these cards in this set. I'm not a huge fan of this particular set, but there are a couple of cards in here that I really, really like a lot. In any case, first card that I have on the list is Judgment of ANUBIS. It's okay. It's an okay card. It's a secret. It's got a cool looking artwork. Kind of has a lot of connections to some of the stuff that was going on there in the Battle City tournament with all the Odeon duels. And then you had all this stuff with MIRAGE where they were using a whole bunch of these Egyptian themed cards and stuff. So it's got kind of some of that going for it, I guess. But I never really got too excited about this particular card, in my opinion. Even though it was one of the secrets here and a lot of people like it, just never really got me too interested. Maybe because it's a trap card and I always had sort of a bias towards monsters or fusion combos or some of the ritual monsters and stuff, but I don't know. Something about this card just never really got me too interested, but it's cool. I appreciate it. I like it. It makes my top 10. If I could have any card from the set, this would probably be on my list of the top 10. Okay, next up we have a card here, Ray of Hope. I always kind of like the artwork from this card. That's why it makes my top 10. Basically got this very stormy looking environment, and then you've got this nice ray of sunshine that's like peering through it. So I think this is purely just an artwork choice, something I liked as a kid. Number 8, we have, I picked the OJAMA trio here, but you could really pick any of the OJAMAs. Those all kind of fit within my top cards from the set. Not because I liked the artwork, but because it was so weird and so memorable and just like off-putting and just freaky that you remembered it really clearly. I did not forget the OJAMAs for sure. That just holds a special place, right, in my kind of memory of this set and these cards. As weird as this is and as unusual as the artwork is and as kind of creepy as they are a memorable part of this set for sure. And I think they make the top 10 for me as a collector, at least, the stuff that I remember the most and value the most from the set. Just for their peculiarity and for their kind of the place that they hold as an artifact of the vintage Yu-Gi-Oh! Era. Next we have the Mirage Knight. I've talked about this before, but a lot of the cards I always liked as a kid. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! I was pretty young at the time when Yu-Gi-Oh! Was getting started there, especially in 2003. I don't think I was even 10 years old, at the time that a lot of this stuff was on the shelves. So for me, the stuff that drew me to cards sometimes were just the stuff that had huge stats, loads of stars, like very high-level cards. That was the kind of stuff that always stuck out in your memory, and this guy was no exception, right? A nice, strong attack, strong defense. Just an interesting card, right? Keeping with the themes of a lot of the magicians. Some of the castle-like themes that you have. There's some of that in Legacy of Darkness as well, where you have a lot of these knights and you have a lot of dragons and things like that and castles and such. So I always enjoyed some of that kind of artwork as well. So cool card. I think nice artwork, good stats, very high powered. I think this is a pretty valuable card actually today for folks that have it in like a PSA 10, but cool card. Definitely something that made my list of the top 10 favorites here. Number 6, I have Token Thanksgiving. This was just something that I always thought was kind of weird. I liked the Scapegoat card a lot as a kid from the starter deck Joey. It has some of that going on in the artwork, as you could see there. And I just thought it was weird, right? It's like, what are these guys doing? They're like walking around, picking up a whole bunch of these Furby-like creatures, basically, and what are they going to do with them? Are they going to eat them? What do they do with those tokens? It's unclear in the picture, but I always just thought it was a weird artwork. Just a funny looking card, something you remember really clearly when you were young. And for that reason, it makes my top 10, even though it's a common, certainly not anything that people would have a hard time finding. But a memorable card for me, and one that I liked a lot from this particular set. Okay, next up we have the Guardian CEAL, I think is how you pronounce this. I didn't like this card much as a kid because I had a hard time interpreting the artwork. It is really hard, like you have to look at this thing from a couple different angles and like glance away and look at it again to really understand like what is happening in this artwork. At least to my eyes, it's a very hard thing to visually interpret. And I guess in hindsight, I like it a lot for that reason. It's just a very unusual piece of artwork. It's probably my favorite of the Guardian cards. There's a couple of Guardians in this set. I guess this is probably my favorite one of them all. Just because I like the look of the art. It's like weird and very hard to interpret, and it's just a fun card in terms of how they designed it. So I think that's mostly why I like this one. Not so much because I was a huge fan of the Guardian monsters as much. I know they were big in season 4 or so around that time. Darts and some of his characters used the Guardian monsters. But I can appreciate it, right? I like the artwork, and I get the appeal for some collectors that really are into the Guardian monsters. Next up, we have the BERSERK Dragon. As I mentioned earlier, when it comes to stats, that's the stuff that I always remembered very much as a kid, the monsters that had huge stats or that had really low stats in one category and really high stats in another one. And I think that's mainly the reason why I remembered this card, was because of the huge attack and 0 defense. Hard to forget that. It's very weird in Yu-Gi-Oh! That there's cards like that, where the discrepancy is that tremendous. And just a fun card, right? It was cool, kind of a cool looking card, cool artwork, and definitely something you remembered if you had cards from this particular set. Okay, next up we have Dark Master Zorc. This is coming in at number 3. I don't think it's a surprise that this made my top 5. I think my reasoning for this one is simple. It is a fun artwork, very spooky card, and it's hard to forget it. It looked cool. Like if you had a copy of this, that green sort of a tint to it was very different. Not a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh cards look like that. And it's interesting, I should do a separate video about this on the visual similarities between some Yu-Gi-Oh cards. But this was one thing that always looked different than a lot of the other stuff that you had in the deck. Not only because the paper stock was blue with being a ritual summon card, but because it had this weird kind of a green fog to it. So yeah, that made the top 3 for me pretty easily. Number 2, we've got EXODIA NECROSS. I don't think this is a surprise either that it made my top 3. I've done a separate video where I've argued that EXODIA NECROSS would have made a great secret rare probably from this set as well. Just a cool artwork. Obviously, I loved that Season 3 saga. A lot of people don't like Season 3 much, but I liked the whole Gozaburo Kaiba. I loved that showdown towards the end of the season where Kaiba dueled against his father there, and just a weird monster and just a very dramatic duel. Has a lot of good connection to the anime series. EXODIA, can't go wrong with EXODIA, right? One of the most popular creatures in Yu-Gi-Oh! So this card has a lot going for it, in my opinion. Definitely one of my hands-down favorites from this set. Number 1 is Shinado, King of a Higher Plane. This was Noah Kaiba's ace card, basically from his duel there with Yugi towards the end of the Season 3 narrative. And I liked this card a lot. Not only because it has huge stats, and that's the kind of stuff that you remember as a kid, but because it looks nice as an artwork. It's very different and unusual, and distinct among a lot of the Yu-Gi-Oh artworks from the vintage era. This is not just another dragon, right? It's not just another knight or some kind of a zombie or something like that. It's a very different monster. And I think for all those reasons, it stands out to me a lot. I just like the look of it. I liked the card. And it's one of my favorites from this set for sure. So that's all I think for Dark Crisis, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. As you can see, there's a couple cards here that I like a lot. The rest of them, take them or leave them. Not my favorite set in Yu-Gi-Oh, but still cool, and I can still appreciate some of the really interesting creatures and artworks that they put into this particular set. So let me know down in the comments, what did you think? What do you disagree with? What kinds of cards do you think I missed from this particular ranking of the top 10? Always good to hear from folks and see what kind of perspectives people have. So Once again, this is the Parkside Merchant. Thanks again for watching. Appreciate everybody's time, and we'll see you next time.